All right, let's jump into it today. We're going deep on Aisha bint Abu Bakr, a truly fascinating figure in Islamic history.
It's going to be a great one.
And we've got some fantastic sources to work with.
Yeah.
Dr. Omar Suleiman's lecture is going to give us a really solid look at Aisha's early life and those incredible sacrifices she made. And then we've got this super well-made animated video, really brings out her personality.
Yeah, it does a great job with that.
Buckle up, because, I mean, we're about to uncover some seriously fascinating stuff about her life.
Oh, for sure.
It really struck me just how much Aisha experienced at such a young age.
Yeah.
Her childhood in Mecca definitely wasn't, peaceful, right?
Right.
The lecture talks about how she actually witnessed her own father, Abu Bakr, being tortured for his faith.
You know, it's hard for us to grasp the intensity of that time period, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being a child and seeing your father, one of the very first believers in Islam,
Right.
being physically punished for what he believed in.
And there's this detail, and tell me if I'm getting this right, that Abu Bakr was actually beaten by a relative of Khadija,
Yeah, that's right.
who was the Prophet Muhammad's first wife.
Exactly.
The irony there is intense.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely adds a whole other layer to the story. You know, it highlights those complex social dynamics of the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a straightforward us versus them between believers and non-believers.
Yeah.
You had loyalties and family ties all mixed up in that conflict.
And it's amazing how Dr. Suleiman, he doesn't just dwell on that hardship, but he really emphasizes Abu Bakr's commitment to justice.
Yeah.
This guy used any money that came into his home to free slaves.
Yeah, especially during a time of, such intense persecution.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful testament to his character.
Absolutely.
And to the values that he instilled in Aisha. I mean,
Yeah.
this helps us understand why generosity became such a defining trait for her later on.
Yeah.
I mean, even the animated video.
It tells that story about how Aisha gave away her entire month's worth of food to the poor.
Wow.
Even while she was fasting herself.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible.
That kind of selflessness really makes you stop and think.
Oh, absolutely.
But I love how the animation also shows that, Aisha wasn't just this serious, pious figure.
Right.
She had a playful side, too.
Yeah.
They actually depict her racing the Prophet Muhammad. Not once, but twice.
And I think those moments offer us a glimpse into that human, relatable side of their relationship.
Totally.
We tend to think of these figures as historical giants,
Yeah.
larger than life.
Yeah.
But, they also lived and laughed and shared moments of, simple joy
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of their relationship, it seems like this marriage between Aisha and the Prophet Muhammad was almost destined.
Right.
Both sources talk about these prophetic dreams.
It's fascinating, the idea of divine intervention. Right.
Like the Prophet having these three very vivid dreams where he was shown an image of Aisha
Right.
wrapped in green silk and told that she would be his wife.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you ignore that, right?
And at the same time,
Yeah.
Sada,
Yes.
a widow who was related to Khadija, she was having these dreams of her own,
It's crazy.
suggesting she would marry the prophet.
Yeah.
And she actually ended up being the
Yeah.
one who suggested both herself and Aisha
Yeah.
as potential wives.
She was like the matchmaker,
Yeah.
guided by a higher power, it seems.
It's really remarkable.
It is, but as with, any marriage, especially one of this magnitude,
Right.
there were definitely some obstacles
Yeah.
they had to overcome.
Remember, Aisha was actually promised to someone else at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
She was engaged to Jubair, the son of Mutim,
Right.
and Abu Bakr, being the honorable man he hesitated to break that engagement.
Yeah, he was facing a real moral dilemma.
Yeah.
So first of all, he was concerned about whether the marriage to Aisha was even permissible,
Right.
He considered himself a brother to the Prophet in faith.
Yeah.
So he wondered if it was even allowed.
Does that go against the brotherhood?
Exactly, but the Prophet clarified, their bond in Islam didn't make the marriage unlawful.
Okay.
But even with that settled, Abu Bakr was still bound by his promise
Right.
to Jubair's family.
Right.
He didn't want to go back on his word.
That shows his integrity.
Absolutely. It's a real testament to his character,
Okay.
that he sought a solution that upheld both his commitment to Islam and his personal values.
Yeah, and then fate kind of steps in,
Yeah.
right?
A rather unexpected solution.
We're talking about Jubair's mom.
Exactly.
I'm surprised to learn how she felt about uh, Aisha's family converting to Islam.
Oh, yeah, she was not happy about it.
No.
So when Abu Bakr went to discuss the marriage with Jubair's father, Mutim, it was actually Jubair's mother who became the deciding factor.
Wow.
She was afraid of Aisha's influence on her son,
Yeah.
and she voiced her disapproval really strongly.
Wow.
And that allowed Abu Bakr to break the engagement without,
Going against his principles.
exactly, without
Yeah.
compromising his own values.
It's like the circumstances just aligned.
It's almost as if, yeah, things were meant to be.
Wow. That's quite a turn of events.
Yeah, definitely.
But before we jump into, the wedding itself, we got to talk about the hijra,
Yes,
that migration to Medina.
absolutely.
Aisha's firsthand account of this event
Yes.
is like absolutely captivating.
I mean, her perspective is so unique, so personal. It's like we're getting this behind-the-scenes look
Yeah.
at this, like, monumental moment in early Islamic history.
And it's remarkable how close Abu Bakr came to actually missing the hijra.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he almost migrated to Abyssinia
Right?
with his family to escape persecution in Mecca. And it was only because a tribal leader, Ibn Adegana, he recognized Abu Bakr's value
Right.
to Meccan society and convinced him to stay,
Right.
that he was even present for the hijra.
Talk about, like, a sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
It really underscores how these seemingly unrelated events could have a profound impact on the course of history.
Absolutely. And Aisha's account is full of these like vivid details. She describes, the secrecy surrounding their worship in Mecca,
Yeah.
her father's emotional recitations of the Quran,
Right.
and the prophet arriving at their home in secret to begin this journey.
It's all so, so vivid. And even the packing process is, like, fascinating to me. Like, Aisha remembers gathering all these supplies, provisions, and they used, like, 5 camels
Wow.
for the prophet, Abu Bakr, and their families.
It really paints this picture, like the weight of this journey.
Yeah, the preparation that went into it.
There's one detail that like gave me chills.
Mm-hmm.
Aisha nearly got lost during the journey
Oh, yeah.
when her camel bolted.
Wow.
She was only saved by a voice she believes was an angel.
It's pretty powerful.
It really highlights that danger and uncertainty.
The risks they took for their faith.
Yeah.
But, they persevered. They made it to Medina,
Yeah.
starting this whole new chapter
Yeah.
in Islamic history and, of course, in Aisha's life.
So we've got this dramatic escape,
Yep. Right.
a divinely ordained marriage. I'm kind of curious, what was the wedding ceremony like?
Well, Aisha, she describes the preparations with, like, a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
The women of Medina are singing, her hair being styled. It sounds like a real celebration.
Yeah.
But the actual feast
Mhm.
was incredibly simple.
You're not kidding.
A bowl of milk.
Like just one bowl of milk?
Just one bowl of milk.
That's hard to like fathom,
I know.
especially for like figures of this magnitude, right?
Right, but it really speaks to their priorities,
Right.
right? Yeah.
They weren't focused on material wealth or extravagant displays.
Yeah.
It was about the sanctity of the union,
Mm-hmm.
the spiritual significance of the marriage.
It definitely makes you think about, like, how different,
Yeah.
things were back then.
Our modern notions of what a wedding should
Oh,
be.
absolutely.
Right.
Totally different. And even in that simplicity,
Mm-hmm.
Aisha still manages to convey, like, a sense of tenderness
Yeah.
between her and the prophet.
Yeah.
She talks about how nervous he was and how
Oh.
she was, being so young,
Right.
incredibly shy as well.
It's such a lovely touch
Yeah,
that humanizes them.
absolutely.
You know, these weren't just like iconic figures, but
Yeah.
two people experiencing those, same anxieties and emotions that we all feel, especially on such a big day.
Exactly. And they were starting their life together in Medina,
Yeah.
and it sounds like things were still pretty rough. Oh, yeah. Their honeymoon phase definitely wasn't filled with luxury
Right.
or ease.
Mhm.
Aisha describes a very humble, you could even say austere lifestyle.
Mhm.
She mentions that, like, months would go by
Wow.
without a fire being lit in their home
Really?
because they simply didn't have food to cook.
Months without a fire.
Yeah.
That's hard to imagine.
It is. It really reinforces how much the Prophet and his companions
Yeah.
sacrificed during those early days of Islam.
Right.
You know, their personal lives remained simple even as their community grew
Yeah.
and their influence expanded.
And it's remarkable, right, that despite these hardships, Aisha was so focused on serving the Prophet.
Yeah.
She even mentions him repairing his own clothes and shoes.
It's humbling to think about, right?
Yeah.
The leader of a growing religion mending his own garments.
It's a testament to their shared commitment
Yeah.
to a life of simplicity
Mhm.
and service.
And speaking of service, we can't forget Aisha's incredible generosity.
Right.
Like that story about her giving away a whole lamb,
Right.
keeping only the shoulder for the Prophet.
That's incredible.
It really is.
And then that gentle reminder from the Prophet, right?
Yeah.
That what is given for Allah's sake
Right.
is all that truly remains.
It's such a beautiful lesson
It is.
in selfless giving, even when you yourself have very little.
Yeah, it's a profound message
It is.
that like transcends time.
Yeah, it's not about material possessions.
Yeah.
True wealth lies in our actions, in our generosity, and our connection to something greater than ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's incredible to think how much we've already unpacked about Aisha's life.
It really is.
We've gone from her childhood, the hijra, the marriage,
Mhm.
and we're just scratching the surface, really.
It's true as we move forward.
Mhm.
You know, we left off talking about that simple life in Medina, but we really see Aisha blossoming into this incredibly influential figure. And a lot of that influence stemmed from like her intellect, her knowledge.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
There's a range of knowledge Aisha had. The animated video mentions, her being well-versed in poetry, literature, and even having knowledge of medicine and dentistry.
I mean, think about that, right? We're
Yeah.
talking about a time when women's roles were often confined to the domestic sphere.
Right.
And here you have Aisha just soaking up knowledge in a way that most people wouldn't have expected.
It really challenges our assumptions about what women were, capable of back then.
Absolutely.
And she didn't just learn for the sake of it either.
Right.
Dr. Suleiman talks about how she learned medicine by actually observing the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, she was a smart learner,
Mhm.
by absorbing, asking questions.
Right.
She wasn't just passively, sitting there taking in information. She was actively engaging with it.
Yeah, it's like that saying,
Yeah.
tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn.
That's it. She was all about that hands-on learning experience.
Absolutely.
And it speaks to her curiosity.
Yeah.
Her desire to really understand not just like the what of things,
Mhm.
but the why behind them.
And her upbringing probably had a lot to do with that, right?
Oh, for sure.
Dr. Suleiman talks about her childhood home being like a hub of Islamic activity.
Right. Imagine being surrounded by these scholars,
Yeah.
deep thinkers from such a young age.
It's like, knowledge was just in the air she breathed.
It's no surprise that she inherited her father's
Right.
sharp mind, that thirst for knowledge.
Yeah, but as we dive deeper into Aisha's story,
Mm-hmm.
we encounter some more like challenging aspects.
Yeah, there are definitely some, more difficult parts of her story that we need to address.
You're talking about the controversies.
Yeah, the accusations, the rumors that circulated about her later in life.
It's important to acknowledge those.
It is. It's not about dwelling on negativity,
Right.
but to understand the full scope of Aisha's story
Right. Right.
and to see how she navigated those difficult moments.
Yeah, I mean the most well-known incident I think is the one referred to as the slander.
Right, right.
It must have been like incredibly painful for her
Oh,
to
absolutely.
face those false accusations that challenged her integrity
Yeah.
and reputation.
It was a serious ordeal.
Well, yeah.
But it's remarkable how she persevered through it.
Yeah.
And ultimately she was exonerated.
Right.
Dr. Suleiman points out that, verses were actually revealed in the Quran confirming her innocence, condemning the spread of those false rumors.
It's a powerful example
Yeah.
of how the Quran addresses like justice and truth.
It really is, but I can only imagine the emotional toll that whole experience must have taken on her.
It makes you think about how, we consume information today
Right.
and the importance of like critical thinking. You
Absolutely.
can't just believe everything you hear.
Exactly. And beyond that specific incident, it's crucial to understand the broader historical context.
Yeah.
You know, after the Prophet Muhammad's death,
Right.
there were significant power struggles
Oh, yeah.
within the Muslim community.
And so with her knowledge, her understanding of Islam,
Right.
Aisha was inevitably drawn into those conflicts.
She became a very vocal advocate for
Yeah.
her understanding of the Prophet's legacy. Sometimes she aligned with certain factions.
Right.
Sometimes she opposed others.
It was a very tumultuous time, it sounds like.
It was a time of like intense debate,
Yeah.
interpretation,
Yeah.
as the early Muslim community, grappled with defining its future.
Right.
So yeah, some might view her involvement as, controversial, but
Yeah.
it also shows just how deeply she cared
Yeah.
about upholding what she believed to be the true principles of Islam.
Absolutely. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind,
No, not at all.
even when it meant challenging those in power.
Exactly. And through that active engagement, she left a lasting mark
Yeah.
on Islamic thought and jurisprudence.
That reminds me, Dr. Suleiman said that a quarter of Islamic law is derived from Aisha's narrations.
Wow.
Of the Prophet's teachings and practices.
It's incredible, right?
A quarter.
Yeah, and for those who might not be familiar, hadith refers to those collections of sayings and actions attributed to the Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
And Aisha was a primary source for these narrations,
Wow.
which form a really crucial part of Islamic law and tradition.
So she was like a walking encyclopedia of Islamic knowledge.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, think about the impact that had, right?
Yeah.
Like, generations of scholars and everyday Muslims, they look to her narrations for guidance, for understanding. Her legacy extends far beyond her lifetime.
It's amazing.
It really is.
And her contributions weren't limited to like religious matters.
Right.
Both the lecture and the video emphasized, her intelligence, her eloquence.
Absolutely.
Which, probably helped her navigate that complex political landscape.
Oh, for sure. She was known for her quick wit, her ability to debate effectively, and her unwavering confidence.
Which wasn't always easy, right?
No, not as a woman in a patriarchal society.
Right, exactly. But her willingness to challenge norms, to engage in intellectual discourse.
With both men and women.
Looks remarkable.
It's a testament to her character that she used her intellect and influence to advocate for what she believed in, even when it went against the grain.
Yeah. It's a powerful example for all of us.
Absolutely, regardless of, our background or beliefs.
Yeah, and we've talked about Aisha as this brilliant scholar, courageous advocate, but let's not forget the personal side.
Right.
The animated video does a wonderful job of highlighting those softer qualities.
Yeah, it reminds us that she was a human being.
Yeah.
With a full range of emotions.
Right. Her generosity, her playfulness.
Yeah.
Her deep love for the Prophet.
It helps us connect with her on that personal level.
I loved that story about erasing the Prophet.
Oh, yeah.
It's just this fun, lighthearted moment.
Yeah.
Shows a different side.
Yeah, a reminder that even amidst, all of the weight of their responsibilities, they still found joy. They laughed together.
Yeah. Exactly. They were human.
Yeah. Even the most influential figures are still human, right?
Right.
Capable of experiencing that full spectrum of emotions.
Yeah. And it's through those glimpses into their personal lives that we can really appreciate their humanity.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Aisha's life, what stands out to you most about her legacy?
I think it's the multifaceted nature of her story that I find so compelling. She was a devoted wife, a brilliant scholar, a courageous advocate, and a compassionate human being.
It's true.
She embraced all of these roles with such conviction.
It's truly an inspiring legacy that continues to resonate today.
It does.
Makes you realize that, one person can truly make a difference.
Absolutely.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into the life of Aisha bint Abu Bakr.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It really has. We've covered so much: her childhood in Mecca, her intellectual contributions, even those controversies that, surrounded her.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up,
yeah,
I think it's important to step back and consider the bigger picture here.
Okay.
Like, what does Aisha's story tell us about early Islamic society and the role of women in it?
That's a great question.
It feels like her life really challenges any simple assumptions
Yeah.
we might have about, women's roles during that time.
Absolutely. She was clearly more than just a wife or a homemaker.
Right.
She was a scholar,
Mhm.
a teacher,
Yeah.
a respected figure who actively shaped the development of Islamic thought
Yeah.
and tradition.
And it really pushes back against that stereotypical image
Right.
that some people might have
Mhm.
of women in early Islam.
It really highlights the diversity of experiences that women had
Yeah.
in early Islamic society.
Right.
While some may have led more traditional lives,
Mhm.
focused on family and household matters,
Right.
others, like Aisha, they broke barriers
Yeah.
and they pursued intellectual and spiritual growth.
And it's important to note, right,
Yeah?
that Aisha had the support of
Yeah.
the Prophet Muhammad himself.
Yes, absolutely.
He encouraged her intellectual pursuits.
He valued her opinions.
Yeah.
He entrusted her to transmit his teachings to others.
Yeah, it really speaks to his vision, right?
Yeah.
For a society where women could contribute their talents and intellect.
Alongside men.
Yeah, I mean, her partnership with the Prophet was so instrumental
Absolutely.
in shaping her legacy
Yeah.
and allowing her to have this profound impact on Islam.
Right.
One thing that really struck me
Yeah.
in both the lecture and the animated video was the emphasis on Aisha's dedication
Yeah.
to preserving the Prophet's legacy.
After his death. That's a really crucial part of her story. She made sure his teachings were documented accurately and passed down to future generations. She took on that responsibility,
Yeah.
safeguarding, his words and actions
Right.
for the benefit of the whole Muslim community.
And she didn't just blindly repeat what she'd learned either.
No, she shared her own interpretations, her understanding of the Prophet's teachings.
Yeah.
She debated with scholars, challenged traditional views,
Yeah.
contributed to the evolution of Islamic jurisprudence.
Right, which is essentially
Yeah.
the study and interpretation of Islamic law.
Exactly.
Wow, her contributions to the Hadith literature are especially significant.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, remember the Hadith?
Yeah.
Those collections of saying, actions
Yeah.
attributed to the Prophet?
Right.
Her narrations offer these incredibly valuable insights into, his life,
Right.
his character,
Yeah.
the context of early Islam.
It's amazing to think that, like, centuries later,
Yeah.
we're still benefiting
Right.
from her knowledge and perspective.
Absolutely. It's a powerful testament to the enduring power of her legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, her story continues to inspire and challenge us
Yeah.
to think critically,
Right.
to seek knowledge, and to work towards a more just and equitable world.
As we reach the end of our deep dive here,
Yeah.
what key takeaways would you want our listeners to walk away with?
Oh, that's a good question.
What are those essential lessons we can learn from Aisha bint Abu Bakr?
I think there are, several key points to consider.
Okay.
First, Aisha's story reminds us that history is never black and white.
Right.
It's complex.
Mm-hmm.
It's multifaceted.
Yeah.
And it's full of individuals who defy easy categorization.
It's a good reminder to avoid those simplistic narratives.
Yeah.
And to really embrace the nuances
Absolutely.
and contradictions that make history so fascinating.
Yeah. And second,
Yeah.
Aisha's life really challenges us to question those assumptions about women's roles in society,
Right.
both past and present.
Yeah.
Her story shows that women have always been capable of making significant contributions
Yeah.
in all areas of life, whether it's scholarship,
Right.
religion, politics, social activism.
It shows that intelligence, courage, determination
Yeah.
are not limited by gender.
Absolutely. And finally, I
Yeah.
think Aisha's legacy emphasizes the importance of preserving knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
seeking truth,
Yeah.
engaging in respectful dialogue.
Yeah.
Even when we disagree,
Yeah.
her willingness to debate, to challenge those traditional views,
Yeah.
to share her own understanding of Islam,
Yeah.
offers such a powerful example for all of us.
She didn't shy away from those tough conversations
Yeah.
or controversial topics.
She embraced those challenges head on.
Yeah, so as we conclude our deep dive into this extraordinary life of
Yeah.
Aisha bint Abu Bakr,
It's been amazing.
it really has.
I hope, you'll carry her legacy forward.
Yeah.
Let's all embrace knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
challenge injustice, Yes.
Yeah.
Strive to build a world where everyone,
All right.
regardless of gender, has the opportunity to make their mark on history.
Beautifully said. And to our listeners out there, keep exploring Aisha's story.
Yeah, dive in.
Delve deeper into those sources.
Keep learning.
Form your own conclusions and keep that curiosity alive.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
See you then.